First, we want to say a big thank you to the landlords who are currently on our program. I just I put some faces with some of the names. Mr. Taylor said he signs the checks, and we sign them as well. So I put a face with some of those names. So thank you to our landlords who are currently landlords, and we want to say a big thank you to those who are thinking about becoming landlords, and we hope that after the end of this night that you will provide feedback to us. I was asked if we did this regularly, and to be very honest with you, I'll say that I hope that this is something that continues regularly. So this is our first, and we're going to ask that you all will provide comments and feedback so that we know what we're doing well and what maybe we need to improve on, or any feedback that you would like to give. So I am here to provide you all with something to smile about. I need you to pull your mask down so I can see you smile back at me. Yes. There you go. Now we got something to smile about. He smiled before I even said anything, so I'm glad. The program that I'm going to be talking to you all about consists of several different components. We are calling it the PHC's new proposed Landlord Assistance Program. What this program is, one component, the first component, is a mitigation fund. This mitigation fund will be approximately $250,000 to $300,000 to assist with move-out damages, minor plumbing, painting, flooring, and minor electrical work. Another component of this program is the security deposit assistance. That's going to be a part of this program as well. In addition to that, water bill assistance will be a part of the program. Information about all of these resources will be provided later during the symposium. This is a program that you must register for. However, every single landlord in this room, because you chose to be a part of our symposium tonight, you automatically qualify for the program. We will still need you. We will need you guys to sign up still, but you automatically qualify for the program for coming out and supporting us tonight and allowing us to support you. This program is due to roll out in late 2022 to early 2023. We're looking at all of the dynamics and all of the guidance that's going to be passed down from HUD, and that'll determine when we actually roll out the program. And what we're basically doing, we're using incentives as a part of the Landlord Assistance Program to encourage you who already rent to our clients and to encourage even further those who will rent to our clients. So again, we want to say thank you to all of the landlords who are a part of the Housing Commission, and we're encouraging, doing everything that we can to encourage those who are not to then become landlords on our program. So without further ado, he's actually eating right now. But I would like to bring up...
Actually, before you bring up our mayor, I'm going to let him finish up this. I do want to say this to the landlords. We know currently we're faced with some unique challenges. Inflation is making everything tough right now. To add that, we're still dealing with the post-pandemic. So we know that our issue is trying to find available housing stock. We have many of our voucher holders that come into our office and say, I ran out of my 120 days, and I'm still looking for available units. And this goes from studios all the way to 4 bedrooms. So we're hoping, again, that these options and these programs that we're offering give you the opportunity to expand your portfolio. And what's said today, we're hoping you kind of accept more of these vouchers. And we're hoping the development community accept more of these vouchers as well. And you'll hear about some proposed payment standards as well. We're working to align our market rates with the market, the pricing for our vouchers. So you're going to see some proposed payment standards as well. We're going to be discussing that as well. So hopefully everything we say, we're going to give you encouragement to even tell your other friends to invest into our community. We're going to ask a big ask for the landlords for sustainability. We know we're going to ask you to continue to invest in your properties for our tenants and our participants. And we're hoping what we said today will give you the encouragement to invest in those properties. So with that being said, we're going to bring over our mayor, who's been tasked to help assist with these challenges as well. So at this time, Tim, come on up.
Well, thank you, Yvette, and thank you, Ahmad. I just want to thank all the landlords for coming out this evening. I know we've got a good mix of folks here, and I appreciate Ahmad's leadership in trying to bring landlords together to learn more about the Pontiac Housing Commission, to learn more about the Pontiac Housing Commission's voucher program. I see a lot of landlords in the audience that are familiar faces to me, including the leadership and regular members of the Pontiac Landlords Association. Obviously, we've got a very tight housing market right now, and as Ahmad said, it's become very difficult to place voucher tenants in housing because it's been tough to find available housing, period, and especially difficult to find landlords and housing that accept Section 8 vouchers. So I appreciate the landlords who have come and are keeping an open mind about accepting vouchers. We do have a housing crisis right now. We have plenty of vouchers available for those in need, but the challenge has been finding landlords and housing that's willing to accept those vouchers. So again, many thanks to Ahmad, many thanks to Yvette for your leadership in putting on tonight's event. I want to thank the Catholic Community Response Team for your leadership over many years to try to provide supports for tenants and really appreciate the innovative approach in trying to provide some assistance to landlords who are willing to accept vouchers and participate with the Pontiac Housing Commission. So again, just want to welcome everybody, appreciate your attendance, and appreciate you keeping an open mind about participating with the Pontiac Housing Commission. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you again, Mayor Greimel. One of the things that you may be asking yourself, if you are not a Pontiac Housing Commission landlord, you may be asking yourself, well, why should I be a landlord? What makes them any different? Well, I'm glad you asked. One of the things that makes us different is during the pandemic, many of you as private landlords didn't receive your rent, plain and simple. You didn't receive your rent, and there were not many programs to allow you to go to court for non-payment of rent. However, if you had a voucher holder in one of your properties, you received at least the payment that came from the Housing Commission. So that's one of the things that makes us different from just being a private landlord. We work with our landlords and apartment complexes to make the experience beneficial for both parties, because that's one of the things that we encourage coming from the Housing Commission standpoint. We encourage landlords and their tenants to try to do their very best to get along, to make it a beneficial experience for both. One of the main things that makes us different, we will not allow our tenants to move and continue assistance without making their current landlord whole. What that means is simply this. If your tenant owes you rent, if your tenant owes you a water bill, if your tenant owes damages, we will not assist them with the next landlord until they have either made you whole or you all have reached an acceptable payment arrangement for them to pay and for them to continue paying throughout whatever the agreed amount is or the agreed terms of the amount is. If there's a debt owed, again, the tenant must pay you before being assisted in any other unit. Now, the main key point to this is not something that HUD says we had to do. This is something that we as a team came together to the table and said, this is what we want to do for our landlords, and this is what we want to do to set the path straight for our tenants. Because again, It's a learning process for everyone involved, and we just wanted to make sure that it was a learning process that could actually benefit you both. This is not mandated, this is just something that we decided to put in our policy. So again, that's something that makes us a little different. Another thing that makes us a little different is what Mr. Taylor talked about. Based off of the trends, we are doing all that we can by raising the payment standards to the highest amount possible, that by our own research, we are able to we looked and did some research with regard to those apartment complexes in the private market. And what we saw in our research is that we are allowing payment standards to be just as much as the private landlord sector. That is what we are doing to make it very close to match the private sector and that are charging rents in similar units. We are working diligently to ensure that landlords are putting their own policies in place. Again, these are some things that you may not even think about, but you need to put some of your own policies in place in the lease that's binding, that we also get a copy of, so that you are protecting yourselves and your properties from damage. Again, this is not something that HUD mandates that we do, but we are doing it because we care about both the landlords as well as the tenants. An example of this, of an idea that we came up with, is quarterly visits to the property. Instead of signing your lease with your new tenant and seeing that person maybe when they pay rent or at the end of that lease, we're encouraging you all to do quarterly visits. You're doing quarterly visits, you're seeing if something's wrong with your unit. You're seeing if something is wrong with your property. That's something that you can actually put in your lease. So there's nothing to say, I can't show up at an appointed time that I've decided to meet with my tenant to do these quarterly visits. What that does is, if there is some damage, you then can talk to your case managers, you can talk to the Housing Trace Voucher Program Coordinator and say, hey, this is what I've noticed, this is what's going on in my house. So we're already aware. You're creating a paper trail, you're creating an opportunity to have your tenant learn from this, because again, many of our tenants are just moving on their own. Many of them don't have the know-how of taking care of a home. But that's one thing that you can assist by working with your tenant. Lastly, we as an agency, we are an agency whose goal is to become what Pontiac and the surrounding area needs. And that is quality, and I'm gonna say this slow so we all can hear it and understand it. Quality, affordable housing. We can do this with your help as participating landlords. And so as I close, I'm hoping that those of you who are not landlords will decide to be, because yes, we're different. Yes, we're going to work with you. Yes, that's why you need to be a landlord with the Pontiac Housing Commission, because in the infamous words of, I think it was Kid Rock, we rock. That's right. So with that, oh, you got something else?
I'm sure you're very clean. I was remiss earlier in not recognizing my colleagues and teammates here. We are joined by 3 council people. And when I came in a few minutes late, I thought that perhaps they had already been recognized, but I learned that they weren't. I want to begin by recognizing our great council president, Mike McGinnis. Also, and by the way, we're in Mike's district as we speak here. Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford from District 1. And then Pastor Councilman William Parker from District 5. And I just want to say it's great to have such wonderful colleagues. All 7 council members, including the 3 in attendance tonight, are just wonderful, hardworking, thoughtful, deliberative elected officials. And it's great to have such wonderful colleagues to work with day in and day out at City Hall. So let's give them another round of applause.
I'm pretty sure you can keep going. I'll be remiss, I don't want to layer one up him, so I do have to, I was going to do this at the Q&A discussion point, but I do want to recognize my president, Commissioner Neil Hilton, and my vice president, Commissioner So at this time, I do want to bring a good friend who kind of like spearheaded this with us. We wanted to get on the same wavelength as the landlords. And we had to first understand some of the challenges the landlords were facing in our community. And we did that by having a candid conversation with Mr. Carey, Mr. Deese. Funny guy to have a conversation with, but I love his honesty. And if you have a moment, I'd like to have you come up and kind of give your perspective of the stance of the landlords. And after Mr. Carey, we're going to ask Barbara to come up to explain some of the resources and the funding mechanism that some of you guys would definitely want to hear today. Good to see you. All right. How you doing?
I got called this afternoon about 4 o'clock and told that I was speaking.
That's not the truth.
We didn't want you saying no.
Yeah, that is the truth. I was out crawling around under a car. I have not dealt with Section 8 tenants in the past. So just the fact that I'm here is a major change. I'm encouraged by some of the initiatives that have been described, but as has been said in the past, the proof is in the pudding. I haven't tasted the pudding yet, but I certainly hope that you all follow through with what you've described. Your schedule is very encouraging, very competitive, and I'm looking forward to continuing to try and work with you folks in the future.
Great. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I met Dan maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that he would be a valuable asset to the Housing Commission and the way that we're trying to move forward. So again, thank you, Dan. Now, our wonderful partner from CCRT, Barbra Williams.
Thank you. I'm going to try and play a short clip just kind of introducing CCRT for those of you who may not be familiar with it, so hopefully it works. Okay, so anyways, I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm Barbra Williams. I'm with the Catholic Community Response Team. We've been in Pontiac since 2004, so 18 years here, and our focus are the residents of Pontiac. So we are here for emergency crisis prevention, keeping people housed, preventing evictions, anything that relates to basic needs. So utility bills that they need help on, clothing, food, eviction prevention, anything like that. Security deposits, we've been helping Pontiac families since 2004. We're housed in the Pontiac Housing Commission building. We're upstairs there, so ready to serve all of their clients as well as the Pontiac community at large. These are some of the things we do for our clients. We seek to prevent homelessness because it's a lot harder and more costly to get people housed once they become homeless than it is to just prevent the eviction in the first place. So we seek to prevent evictions. We provide financial assistance to overcome temporary hurdles. Those might be a past due bill, We have some money even for auto repairs, people needing transportation to get back and forth to work. Sometimes it's even the identity documents to get them into housing in the first place. Birth certificates, those sorts of things. We provide opportunities to build resources and increase stabilities in homes through some programming that we do that helps people plan a future, set goals and attain goals, things like home ownership and those sorts of things. And provide a listening ear, because as you know, a lot of people, especially over the last 2 years, have been mental health issues and loneliness, those sorts of things, so we always provide a listening ear as well. And navigating the Department of Health and Human Services. We are a partner, we are a community navigator for people who need help applying for things like food stamps, emergency relief, eviction help, utility help. We are a partner where we can help them do their applications and get those submitted so we can see if there's any help through government agencies first before we then step in and also provide other funding. So I want to talk a little bit about eviction prevention. We, over the past, since we opened in 2004, but I would say over the past 10 years, we've done about 200 eviction preventions a year. So that's a pretty big number, anywhere from, we have $50,000 to $100,000 a year going out for eviction prevention. These might be people who are using vouchers, or it may be just regular tenants. Mostly lower income tenants or people who are just over about 200% of poverty, that kind of level. But what we really encourage you as landlords, we often hear stories that landlords are trying to help their tenants. So they'll let them go and let them go and let them go. And before you know it, the tenant is 4, 5, 6 months past due. We encourage you to file paperwork early, because oftentimes if a tenant is just 1 or 2 months behind, we can get them whole. We can put that money together through ourselves, through DHHS, through our partner churches, and we can make that tenant whole. But if they get 4 and 5 months behind and those dollars are starting to head around $5,000, $6,000, that makes it a lot harder for us to put that package of money together. So we do encourage you to not be afraid to file paperwork. The state, all the state agencies and most every agency requires a tenant to have at least received a summons from the court. So they have to be at that point. It can't just be the 7-day notice that they're late paying their rent. They have to have the summons to appear in court in order to receive assistance. So don't hesitate if you have someone who's running into that second month past due. Go ahead and file the paperwork, because that is the only way that the tenant is going to be eligible for assistance. Okay, we require, and most agencies and state governments require that they show proof of sufficient income going forward. So if they've been laid off, they've been in the hospital, they've had some type of emergency that's prevented them from working, but now they're back to work, then there's money available. So we do have to show for the state that they have enough money to pay their rent going forward. Now at CCRT, because our money is not federally or state funded, it's all through private donations, we are able to make exceptions. So if you had a tenant, for instance, who had cancer or something that was ongoing and still weren't back to work, we could still help in those situations. So always, and I've got some handouts there for our contact information, don't be afraid to contact us and tell us what's going on with the tenant, or better yet, have the tenant contact us, because there are ways that we can help them, even if they're going through an ongoing struggle. Other documents, we would need the copy of the lease, because we never give the landlord the money to pay, we never give the tenant the money to pay the bills. Our checks will come directly to you. So like Ahmad signs your checks sometimes for the Housing Commission, we'll sign the checks for the rent, and that will go directly to you, not through the tenant, it'll go directly to you for payment. And we generally assist with at least 1 month's full rent. So if the rent is $900 a month, we would help with $900. So that's about where we're at. But we have a huge network of churches that are able to put funding together. So don't be afraid. Get the people the help they need. Okay, a little bit about water bills, because I know a lot of you are struggling with water bills. First thing you need to make sure is that your tenant is getting a water bill in their name, or at least resident with their address. You can get a duplicate bill sent to the landlord. That's a good idea. Then you know if your tenant is paying their water bill or not. So make sure that they are getting a water bill. That you're just not passing it on to them, that they are actually getting billed in their name. And there is a program, the Water Residential Assistance Program, nicknamed WRAP, and that helps with water bills up to $1,500 per year. Immediately, as soon as they're enrolled, $625 is eligible if they're past due that amount or more. I just spoke with Teresa today because I've had some landlords and tenants calling saying that that program is backed up. Their people can't get into it, but that is not true. I spoke with the person who runs that program, and they said, no, they've hired extra staff. They are working hard. Anyone who's past due on their water bill or facing a shut-off, they are helping. So, and again, they will get a monthly credit on their bill if they're enrolled in the program, $25 off their water bill every month, so their water bill will be lowered going forward. So the qualifications is it has to be in their lease that the tenant is responsible for the water bill, so make sure you have that in the lease that the tenant is responsible. The household income has to be below 200% of poverty. I have some charts on poverty rates if you're wondering what they are. For a single person, that would be roughly $25,000, and then it would go up from that point with more children in the home. But for a single renter, it would be $2,500 a month. $2,500 a month would be 200% poverty, roughly. And they must stay current on their water bill going forward because they are getting a credit on the bill, so they must stay current going forward to maintain participation in the WRAP program. And the information, I also have a flyer back there, so before you leave, I've got handouts on a lot of these programs, so you don't have to take too many notes. Right, Edison is called the LSP, Low Income Shutoff Protection Program. And they can get into these programs, it gives them a credit again, so that their monthly bill is lowered, and they have to stay current then with that lower payment. But it is a considerable discount once they're enrolled in that program. So we do enroll people in that program. We pay past due amounts. We do require them to go to Department of Health and Human Services again first, get the help there that they can, and then we can make up the difference if there's still more money owing at that point. Another thing, if you have tenants who move in with no furniture, we want to make sure that they have beds to sleep in, and a couch, and a table and chair and kitchen. So we have a warehouse. It's over at Silver Lake Church of the Nazarene over on Walton Boulevard. We provide furniture free for someone who has been homeless or has lost things through flooding or some type of damage, fire. We provide new furniture for those people. We are committed to providing new beds to our clients. So not moving in old beds or bed bugs we know are a problem. So we do provide new beds for all of our clients. We are limited to 2 beds per family, but we want to keep them new, so we've kind of made that restriction. And this is open for families that we serve in Pontiac. We provide the service free, but anyone can come over to the warehouse if they have a little bit more money, the family has a little bit more income. Our prices are really cheap, so encourage you all to visit us. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I've got a list of resources for everyone, and the top one on the list, it says MI for Michigan 211.org. That's a website that you can go on. It's on my list of resources. Anything you need, from home repair to car repair, utility help, the arts, anything is on that website. You go onto that website, you put in your zip code, and it will tell you agencies in the area that can help with that problem that you've got. That's on my list of resources. So, are we going to do any questions? If anyone had questions about evictions, utility bills? Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Barb. So we've heard a lot of information, and one of the biggest things I would like to know if I was a landlord is how much money is going to be allocated towards some of these programs, right? And how much do we have access to? So we've been flirting this idea around, and we've been talking to some nonprofit partners and corporations, of course, are willing to partner up with us with these mitigation funds. So the key idea of the funds, and I'll bring Ms. Transfer to describe them in detail, but it's kind of like 3 funds we want to kind of like work with the landlords with. The first fund is a mitigation fund. This mitigation fund directly works with the damages associated with your assets and your properties. This is a tenant-related assets that go around beyond the scope of what we typically see in our move-out processes. The other one would be our rental assistance. CCRT is a good partner in that. They've done rental assistance for our residents for a number of years. And the other one would be utility assistance. Utility assistance, with you landlords, you know, that goes on your tax bill, if that's not current. Water bill, I'm sorry. Goes on your taxes, and we want to make sure those stay current before you guys don't get any more liability issues. So those 3 issues, there's going to be dollar amounts attached to those. I'll bring Ms. Transu up to talk about those dollar amounts, just so you guys have an idea of what you will have access to.
Is that only for the move out? What about the, like me being a landlord and my tenant is already here and it's damaging out? Are y'all helping the current people that are in the house?
That's a good question. Once we get to that Q&A, I'll be able to answer that for you.
Okay, I did mention it a little earlier that right now we're working with about $250,000 to $300,000 for this particular fund. Again, as we partner with different agencies and as we partner with different partners in the city of Pontiac, we will be looking to increase that amount as well. I wanted to make sure that we also reminded you all about the comment cards that we have. We want your feedback. Again, this is our first Landlord Symposium, and we want to make sure that we are getting the feedback that we need from you, because again, we've already been asked if this is something that we'll do again, and our answer is yes. This is something that we want to do again. We are serious about developing a partnership with our landlords and at some point with our tenants as well. Just outside of the day-to-day things that we do with our tenants, we want to have a partnership with them as well, because again, the more we partner, the more resources that Barb had already talked with you all about, the more resources we'll be able to develop and the more things that we'll be able to do to make this city move forward. So we want to make sure that you all sign the comment cards and put your information. And if you are not a landlord with the Pontiac Housing Commission, please, please, please consider being a landlord with the Pontiac Housing Commission, because we have some exciting things. And Dan, don't worry. If we say it, it's gonna happen. Plain and simple. That's how we do things. So, and then the other thing is the comment card. There was one other reminder, the Q&A. We want to make sure that we keep up with your questions and that you keep up with the answers that we give. Mr. Taylor, did you have anything else?
Yeah, just I mentioned the total, aggregate total, to give you a mindset on that. We're working with our nonprofits in terms of the mitigation fund, offering access of $250,000 to $300,000 in terms of that pocket, and that's before we actually engage in other partners. In terms of the rental assistance, many of our partners receive over $100,000 a year in that regard, so we're looking to match those dollars as well, hopefully, so we can get that fund in the excess of $150,000 to $200,000 as well. In terms of the water program, we're actually in the process of working with some other nonprofits. That dollar amount that we have not actually secured yet, or we haven't really discussed the amount that we can actually engage or allocate to that. So that's something that's ongoing. We'll hopefully get that addressed probably before the summer months start kicking off around June, late June. We'll hopefully have some more information to the landlords in that regard about the water utility. But there is going to be funds available for landlords to access them if your resident is behind on the water utility bills. So with that being said, we are going to open it up for discussion, Q&A. I know you was ready. You was highly ready.
Watch out, he's getting.
And then we'll get to that young lady's first question.
Thank you. Probably the most important question is the steps that we have to take as landlords in order to receive those funds. Do we have to bill you? Do we have to walk the property and point out all those, and then we agree upon the amount that was damaged? And then what steps do we have to take in order to receive those funds without having to go to court? That to me is the most important. In the past, we've had to go to court. In the past, when we evicted somebody, they were moved to another Section 8 housing like Southfield. If we know that they're going to absolutely lose their Section 8 if they don't pay for their damages, is that in writing?
Yes, it is in our housing choice voucher administrator. Yes.
Okay, that's good, because last time we were just told this and it didn't happen that way, which was really unfortunate. So what is the process? We know what the process would be at the end, because we always go, you always have inspections, we always have inspections during midterm, and we like to know what the process is in order. We go through the place and we say, she damaged the blinds, she broke a window, he put his fist through the wall, and let's say there's $300 worth of damages. What's the next step we have to take?
So we're definitely, since this program is new, we definitely don't want to overregulate anything associated with our landlords. Our process, although it's still makeshift, we will definitely have to get more landlords feedback. But our process is going to be real simple. We're going to probably just do a verification through basically our inspection, which is an HQS standard inspection for our voucher holders. Simply, once we confirm that those damages are tenant related, with help with the landlord, of course, it's going to be a small process in terms of we can just sit down with our team. Our team is going to consist of every nonprofit that's contributes to these funds, of course. But it's going to be a streamlined process, and the landlord, identify the damages to our agency. We have our inspection team go out there and clarify and inspect that, of course. And if those determinations seem to be clean, the checks are going to be drawn off collectively by our group. And we want to make sure like these funds are not accessed by just one entity. We want certain entities at the table when we're doing this. But it has to be associated with our participants, which is our voucher holders. And usually those nonprofits are generally designed to help those participants.
Are there still a 30-day limit before we get abated?
That process, again, we want to work with you guys, and if there's something we can do to streamline that and to cut that period down. One thing we don't want to do is create a time lapse in the move-out process. Right?
Well, not necessarily move out. We're talking about during, when an inspection is done, when you guys do an inspection, and there's $300 or $400 for the damages, and basically the landlord has to take care of those damages within 30 days, or else we get abated. How does that play a part in your process?
In that process, in terms of, if we're working with a landlord in that process, the abatement process would probably be considered like a waiver point to us at that point.
So there is a waiver available.
Yeah, so let me explain this. So again, we want to work with you landlord to discuss the barriers. If they're in that discussion, when these barriers, what you're explaining now, are identified to us, we'll tend to eliminate them. So you said abatement within a 30-day process, right? If that's your concern.
That's what the letter says when it comes out to us.
Absolutely. So we can work with our field office in terms of our mitigation fund to say, we should streamline or eliminate this abatement process with landlords that's participating in our program.
Okay, so you understand that it's gonna take longer than 30 days to receive funds from you? Or do we have to take your word for it? Or say we send you a bill and you verify that all these damages are gonna be taken care of, how do we go about receiving those funds?
So again, once we verify the damages,
Okay,
once that's verified, the tenant done the damage, okay? You as a landlord present us with the damages presented, and this is our voucher. Within those 30 days, if you don't have a contractor, if we don't have, you should identify those costs, right? Within that 30-day process. If you worry about the abatement, we can actually streamline and control that process.
okay, so we have to do our part.
You have to do that part and identify the damages to us at a timely fashion. We don't want to see the damages to the tenant after the 30-day process, or after you've had it, you've known about it for 40 days.
No, I get it. Now, at the end of the lease, that's another time when we see a lot of damages. Go ahead.
That's why we are encouraging, like I said earlier, the quarterly.
And Ken, you're not gonna hold the microphone.
Yeah, because I'm ready to ask my question.
That's why we're encouraging the quarterly visit.
Thank you.
No,
I was gonna get quicker. You can have it, wipe it off. Go ahead, I'll get it. Yeah.
And we'll come back to you. I know you fully loaded.
Me too.
I didn't know I was gonna have a mic and all that, but, so this is what I wanna know. Okay, you're talking about the move out. Okay, what about my tenant that's been there 9 years that has wear and tear on my property? It's not like damage to the property, but it's wear and tear because the person lives there, the pipe, this and that. Is that gonna be part of the help that we're gonna get,
That
from?
applies well. The move out was just an example.
Okay, that's all I want to, so the move, so I just had a,
Ahmad, let's slow down a little bit. Wear and tear is part of being a landlord. They should be built into your rent.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about a tenant that does damage before move out, is angry, is upset.
so this is just damage.
Yeah.
You're not helping the tenants that are, okay, so that's what I'm saying, you're helping the landlords, and we're here to help the landlords, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what about the landlords? So you don't have any part of this program that would help the landlords regardless of it is wear and tear. I understand that. I understand that. I had an inspection today and I have to replace the whole, but that's a tenant that's been there for 10 years, okay? So me still, okay, I'm getting money. It's not enough, but still, what can y'all put something in there to help the landlords that have been on the program for years and years that may need help with a little assistance with the wear and tear on a property?
Unfortunately,
No.
this program is not meant for the wear and tear for the landlord, right? This is for the damages outside.
It's damages though,
Outside of the marriage.
okay, I get it.
Over and above.
Okay.
Over and above. It ain't really down, have no.
As a voucher holder and a participant that I am, and a commissioner, I have a suggestion. The end game is to make sure that we become self-sufficient at the end of the day. Because some of us want to be in the program. I'm asking that, just like the landlords want their money and they want assistance, that y'all make it easier if a person has stayed in your property, let's say 10 years, that you try to help us support it and streamline that program with the family self-sufficiency program. Because what normally happens is people have issues at the house. We repair it ourselves. I know because I pay for everything out of pocket. And there are some of us who are voucher holders who want to become self-sufficient. So the same way y'all asking for money, will there ever be a point in time when the Landlord Association actually will allow the people who have been staying in that property for a long period of time to possibly have a land contract or a partnership with the Section 8 program? How can we implement that in the long term? Thank you.
That's a good question. So, partnership from the Landlord Association.
Most landlords are not interested in selling their property. If they were going to, they would sell it on the open market. And land contracts are not a lot of difference between a land contract and renting. It actually is worse. Because if there's not a big down payment, it takes 90 days to actually do a forfeiture of a land contract. So there's no advantage that I've seen. Maybe for long-term tenants, if the owner wants to retire from the business, then absolutely I would give my tenants first option. And a land contract would be probably, the best way to do that.
But I'm referring to the FSS program, which we save money like every month, and we pay our portion of it goes into the escrow account, so it's building up at the end. That's what we do. So the FSS program, whatever you pay your portion of rent, they match you dollar for dollar. So they would actually have the funding.
That's actually going on now?
I've been in it for 5 years.
But is it something that the general public knows, like us landlords? I heard of this 10 years ago, but I have not heard of it until just now that that's still going forward.
Yes, it is.
So again, Ken, and it's one of the reasons why we need to do continuous education, things like this for our. So we've had our successful FSS program for a number of years.
I have a question for this lady here.
Yeah, sure.
And the program you're talking about, when is the value of the real estate established? At the time you start the program, or when you want to exercise the escrow amount to put forward into the property?
It is established at the end, when you're ready
Yeah.
to, yes.
Well, you can see the catch-22 you have. The values of your properties could be going greater than the escrow that you're putting in. At this point in time, I think everybody knows in Pontiac, the real estate has gone up, just like where I live, the real estate has really gone up. So even though you're putting money in on a monthly basis, as the property you're looking to buy goes up at a higher price, you're falling backwards. It's like wages today, right? With inflation, you've actually lost money if you go back a couple of years.
No, but it's a down payment.
It's such a huge throw.
Well, but I'm just saying you answer my question though, is established when they want to take the money out of escrow, and then you determine the fair market value of the property at that point in time.
In addition to down payment assistance that we partnered with numerous.
I'm just curious. I was very curious.
I understand it, so
I was very curious.
This gentleman has a question up front.
Yes, during the pandemic, I basically kept my rent down all-time low. But now, I'm gonna be forced to raise the rent, at all locations. And I was wondering, could these tenants get some assistance with their rent?
So,
Possible. Could they apply for the program?
So with some of our partners, or I say for CCRT, they can only exclusively assist with Pontiac residents. And we also have some other partners that can assist outside the jurisdiction as well. So to answer your question is yes. If you have a portfolio outside of the jurisdiction, but as a voucher holder, there are voucher holders with our agency.
No, one of them are.
Yeah. So,
And this is in the city of Pontiac. But
this
this year I had big plans. I've been upgrading, but I gotta download and start with a new group possibly, because when you raise the rent, the only card that they got, they first moving, I moved. That's crazy. And they know they've been getting a good rate for many years, because I looked at it more like some is better than none. Then once you do that, you done spoil them. So I look at my property is gonna be emptying out, because I gotta up the value.
Sure. We appreciate a lot of you landlords for sticking in there for a lot of tenants and participants. So that's one of the reasons why we're proposing to do our new payment standards. Our current payment standards, you don't see it, I wrote them down there, but we're seeing from 2019 to 2021, we're seeing a 20% increase from our payment standards. And it's probably higher from the private sector. So we're trying to get in line with those rates so we can encourage our landlords to continue to participate in our retention of our program.
So would you be able to assist them?
Yes, we'll be able to assist you about everything.
And your vouchers go up, what, 1 bedroom,
Yes,
$1,060?
so currently,
And a 3 bedroom is what, 17?
yeah, so
That's the proposed.
The only thing,
Yes.
what about the allocation of utilities? That's just gross pay.
Yeah,
And that includes everything. That includes utilities as well. Our payment standards always include utilities as well.
So you're saying a 3-bedroom house, the owner's gonna receive $1,700 and the tenant is still responsible to pay her own utilities, is that correct?
No, I'm
Okay.
saying that this
I wanna make
includes utilities.
That's what I,
Yes.
so
This
What,
includes
you just have a,
what would be the goal without them paying utilities?
Yeah.
yeah, that's, if they have to pay the water, the electric, the gas, you used to have a chart. And I used to be able to read down that chart, and I know exactly what to subtract.
Rule of thumb,
Do you
it's
have-
like 350.
Pardon?
Rule of thumb, it's like 350.
Well, no, that's not how they do it. If it's water, it's a different thing than, so do you have that chart available?
You can get that from the Section 8 caseworker. that you
correct.
work
We can make that chart, just, Ken, we'll definitely get that chart, we'll make sure we can get it
And you
to our.
can email it to us. All of us have their emails
Yeah,
with you.
we'll definitely get that chart.
Because that's encouraging. We've always thought that, you know, you're gonna knock off 35%, and we don't know where we land when it comes to rents because,
No, we got the chart to tell you exactly where you're at. So that's
Okay.
no problem. We got everyone's email in this room, we'll provide that.
Excuse me, I just wanna know, well, you said that's everything added in.
Payment
What
standard,
would,
you're referring to the payment standard, correct?
right,
Okay.
right, I got a couple of places where I pay them, utility and water. So I got that, but on the other side, they pay their rent and they pay their utilities. So how would that work?
In order for you to get the full payment standard, it must include all the utilities. The landlord must be responsible for the
So-
utilities in order for you to get the full payment standard.
So,
In order for me to
but
get this
the
happening-
tenant,
One second.
can you give us a hypothetical on the?
One second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I know it's like you're-
so, you would be able to assist the tenant, you know, when I up the rent, and they say, no way. Most likely, every time I up the rent, it'd be like, no way. Could I refer them to y'all?
No, and let me tell you why. HUD will not allow us to allow you to charge the tenant more than what the approved payment standard is. You cannot go above.
Well, I'm gonna be reasonable.
Right.
I'm gonna be, always been reasonable.
side
That's why I keep the tenants the length that I keep them. I'm not talking about overcharging. I'm talking about now for a respectable rent. You know, just so like I got, one that's paying $500 for a 1 bedroom. It's a nice 1 bedroom. And, I was supposed to move on that, up in that rent 2 years ago. But because of the pandemic, it seemed like it would be foolish.
Well, the good thing about the pandemic is we applied for and were approved for several different waivers. And one of the waivers that we applied for and were approved for is that we do not have to wait until a person's anniversary date to change their payment
Really?
status. We don't have to. This literally just happened. It just happened right now.
No, they had a program going in Oakland County, and they told me to fill out the application, and the tenant was way behind. It was like $2,000.
So, just to answer the gentleman's question, so HUD recently, sorry, sir, HUD recently just approved, two recent waivers.
Three.
Three recent waivers, just the last, not even 30 days.
What were
The first waiver for our agency, I don't know, I mean, it has nothing to do with landlords.
Okay.
The first is that agencies, housing authorities do not have to submit their CMAP score. That's just a fiscal score for the Section 8 voucher program.
Their credit.
No, has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
It has zero to do with that. So let's just focus on the landlord.
Okay, so it's, I mean, but no, I just
That
heard
the
you say that.
waivers associated with the landlord, that the landlords are going to be affected. We're going to focus on
Now,
that waiver states, again,
The second waiver is we are allowing tenants who are actually looking for a place. We are allowed to give them additional time. Normally, there is a cutoff time for when a person's voucher expires. We applied for and received approval for an additional 30 days to give to individuals who are looking so that they have more time to find a place. And then again, what we just stated about not having to wait to allow individuals to move their payment status. Now, you still have to apply, just like you always do. You still have to put that information in to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. We're not just going to go into your tenant's account and just upgrade. We're not going to do that. You still have to submit that paperwork. You have to submit the request in writing as you have always done.
how far in advance does that have to be done?
Right now, the waiver is, if you put it in today, we'll go through the process as we've always done and do what we need to do.
Commissioner, you have something to add?
I'm sorry, defer on the percentage increase out, we just did this at the last board meeting, out a year. That was
Yes.
also to the benefit of
Yes,
landlords?
yes, I was just getting ready to say that. That's the other thing, that we are allowed to go up, I believe it's 125%. We're able to raise the payment standards up to 125% of the fair market rents. And that is established by HUD, that's not established by us.
And that was done again because HUD is also recognizing there's a differential between what's going on in the market and the funds available for Section 8. So they're trying to, and this is not just Pontiac, it's across Southeast Michigan, it's across the country. The private sector is able to get a lot of money for as you know, there's a very limited housing supply. So as a result, high market demand for it. So landlords are basically in the driver's seat right now in a way. So HUD recognizes that we as a housing advocacy organization are getting the squeeze because we want to get as many vouchers out in the community as possible. And so this recent action and it was deferred out until next January or February, where we can now go up to 125% of the allocation.
Saying that if we do a lease and raise the standard, say the rent's gonna be $2,000, and yours is $1,713 for a 3-bedroom house. After the
Ms. Transu and Executive Director Franklin will get you out in charts, and you'll know exactly. It's unfortunate we have the gross number up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you know, they have your email addresses.